happy that it's not me for once having technical problems.
Well, you look like you have a really cool setup there with your,
It's just me all
robot
around,
arm
really.
and microphone. Yeah.
Okay, well, I don't think we can do anything, can we, Darren? Just a matter of
Yeah, I mean, there's no obvious thing I can say. Just look at this. It would need to kind of forensically.
when the mix comes down, can you just boost Roche's
Yeah,
volume?
always do. Yeah.
Okay, all right. In that case, I think we just live with it for this, for the live broadcast, and just be as loud and huggy to that microphone as you can, Roche.
Is that better?
No. Can you guys hear? It sounds like there's like some kind
Condensed.
of condensed, compressed.
Which I mean, I think it's the gain. I think it must be the gaining Windows is right down. Sounds like what it is to me.
So I can hear crackling from you guys.
I haven't got any crackling.
No.
Are you?
No.
Are you on Windows, Roche?
Yeah.
Can you open
Yes.
Windows and sounds in settings?
Yep. Hang on.
Live technical support, everybody.
Yeah.
Well, you were looking into it as a career, almost unbelievably. I think whilst we're doing this, I'm going to repeat Ninja Nurse's joke from earlier.
That'll kill 8
That-
seconds.
It will kill a few seconds. And it is... Oh no, it's disappeared. Some news for you, said Ninja Nurse earlier. I started a band. We're called the Upholsterers because we just do covers. But
You
Tish.
said that with the precise cadence of Alexa.
Yeah, it's all in delivery, Tim. Right, where are you in settings, Roche?
Yeah, I'm looking at the sound, and it's definitely picking up the right microphone.
Okay, can you on the mic? Can you right-click it and choose device properties?
Oh my god, what have I done now? Oh, this is the stuff of my. This is why I don't do just before. Sorry, hold on.
I've lost Discord now. That's interesting. What's going on there? You found it, Roche?
No.
Okay, I think we're going to have to live with it. Otherwise,
Yeah. And like I say, if it's sorted out, if we can sort it out in the mix, as we say in the music business.
We can certainly improve things in the mix.
Okay, and I'll be really close.
yeah.
Yeah, if you can
Okay.
hang around
Okay.
exactly that distance, that will be
Yeah. Okay.
pretty good.
Okay.
Hello and welcome to the PC Pro podcast on the 18th of July 2024. I'm Tim Danton, Editor-in-Chief of PC Pro. Who do I have with me today? I have Barry,
Hi, Tim.
Roche,
Hi, Tim.
hi, and Darian.
Hello, we all know what you're doing. Tim.
I just can't. I'm sorry. I just can't say the surname Collins. It's just one of those things that I just really struggle with. Okay, let's kick off, shall we, with the podcast, and we're going to start with you, Darian.
Yes, so I think back in April, we reported that there were reports that Intel processors from the 13th and 14th generation were suffering from unexpected glitches and crashes. And there was sort of a anecdotal groundswell of people saying that their gaming PCs mostly running these fairly recent, fairly expensive CPUs were just crashing. They were being very unstable. Intel said maybe this was to do with overclocking. They released a BIOS update. They made a couple of suggestions as to things that might help. But now, well, it seems that hasn't helped, because now Alderon Games, which is a developer which makes an MMO called Path of Titans, which I'm sure is very popular among a certain demographic, says they've got some solid data that confirms the problem is still present and is in fact bigger than we may have thought. This is all thanks to telemetry. People like to cavil about telemetry, but every time the game crashes, it sends a report back to the developer, and so they've been able to see with great clarity and certainty that there's a huge statistical spike of things going wrong with people using 13th and 14th generation Intel processors, which is not found on any AMD processors, not found on other generations of Intel CPUs. In fact, slightly concerningly, they wrote in a blog post that it appears that every 13th and 14th generation CPU will have this problem sooner or later. So, well, Intel hasn't yet responded, but it seems the problem is certainly not down to just not overclocking. Alderon Games reported that the problem was with their servers as well as people out there running the game. So it doesn't seem to be a gaming related. Well, it doesn't seem to be related to the exact sort of computing processing routines that are hit by games. It seems to be more of a general usage problem. And the company's responded by decommissioning all of its Intel servers and switching to AMD, which is, understandably in the circumstances, perhaps the only thing they can reliably do to ensure they don't get bitten again. So that's not a good look for Intel, which is still working, to re-establish itself as the dominant or a dominant chip manufacturer.
Well, I think in terms of sales, I think Intel still isn't doing too badly. But Darian, do you think this is a real problem or not?
Well, telemetry, the numbers don't lie, assuming that, it's possible. It's always possible that there's some misinterpretation going on here. But this is strong kind of numeric hard data that backs up what people were already saying on forums and so forth. Chips are incredibly, unbelievably complex. There's billions of transistors and parts that are interacting in different ways, different speeds, different heats, different voltages. To be honest, it's amazing to me that chips work at all. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if there is a fundamental problem here that may or may not be fixable with BIOS and microcode updates. I understand the next generation of Intel CPUs are going to have a new, significantly refreshed core designs anyway. Intel's been, moving away from the classic x86 for many generations, and the next lot, I think we said they were going to get rid of hyper-threading and adopt a different architecture. So it may be that this is academic from a systems architecture point of view, in that it may be that the next generation of chips have already been cured before they're released, but that will be no consolation, of course, to anyone who's currently running one of these iffy blocks of silicon.
Oh, okay, all right. Now I'm just going to quickly jump in there, because if I was an Intel lawyer listening, I'd be going, "What are you saying?" Just to clarify, we are saying that there is a story that there is some telemetry to support the rumours that there are issues with 13th and 14th generation Intel Core processors. We are not saying that they're iffy. Now, just to Rush, just in terms of the actions that people have taken, because we know that Intel has already said it's not going to, take back any CPUs, and good luck taking back CPUs that are embedded into laptops anyway. What can actually be done from a customer's point of view here, the end user's point of view, in terms of a class action? I'm just putting you on the spot, sorry.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so, right.
So
pretty
just
much-
remember to lean in as close as possible
Oh,
into your
yeah.
microphone.
Okay, so then what you'd have to do is you'd have to make a quick assessment. So here's basically the rule: duty, breach, damage, causation, remoteness. Does a producer of goods have a duty to like the end user? Yeah, they do. That's well established. Duty, breach. Was it breached? Well, it's not going to have been breached in every case, but in the ones where they're not working, fine. Then you have to prove that actually that there was something wrong with the chip before it went in. So the sort of the chain will break if you can find a different causal factor. So people are letting them heat up or something like that. I think you would struggle there factually. Duty, breach, damage. So then it's like damage. What was damaged? It's the chip. Did you get 6 months use out of it? Did you get 8 months use out of it? Were you using it every day? All of those kind of things would need to be considered into it. Was it doing so, and then you have to think, well, how much is it going to cost to replace it? Because the courts won't entertain stuff if it's trivial for you to just replace the chip, right? So say if it's $100 or something like that, if it destroys the whole computer, then that's something else entirely. But yeah, it's going to be down. There's a clear duty. Products need to be fit for purpose. They need to match the description. Because goods and all of that, but I think they would find it difficult to prove. Also, for class action, it would have to be the same cause for everyone, and then you're thinking about, well, what are the forensics to be able to establish that right across the board? I think Intel is going to sleep safe.
Okay, thank you. And just a different legal question. If I was on a podcast and for a magazine, and one of my podcasters, one of the contributors, said something that got us into legal trouble, would I be at blame for that, or would
Yes.
would the podcaster?
Yeah, no, you would. As the publisher, you would
I'd be-
definitely.
I'd be-
But if you're a little bit worried about where I'm going to head, don't worry. We're on really safe ground.
Oh, Roche, I'm not worried about you. I've worked with Barry for, I don't know, 25 years, and the number of legally dubious things that man writes is just incredible. And now Darian's getting into the mix with his statements about,
excellent.
so
Keep it spicy, boys. Hey, no, I will say this. It doesn't matter if you say something that's unflattering, provided it's true or defensible, right?
okay, all right. Well, I can always rely on Barry to say something unflattering. So
go.
that's something. Barry, do you have anything you wish to add at this point?
Well, so Darren, this is the K processors, right? They're the ones that are the high-end ones, the overclocker ones, right?
Well, according to the blog post from Alderon Games, they've said they've just said Intel CPUs 13th, 14th generation. I don't have anything more solid than that.
Okay, because The Verge is naming specific K processors. And then if you do look at that blog post from the games company, they talk about problems when it's being pushed. So they talk about using Intel XTU to lower the performance core multiplier, to turn off any overclocking, make sure you're not using any AI or automatic overclocking. And then it says, if you take these steps, it generally behaves itself. So it sounds like something's going wrong when these things get pushed to the limit. And obviously games are an application that will push something to its limit. I think what's most worrying about this, and I'm struggling to find it again, but they basically said that once this problem starts occurring, they deteriorate over time, eventually failing. And that would be my prime concern. It sounds like, there's clearly some, well, not clearly, but it sounds like there's some kind of overheating issue going on that is actually affecting the stability of the chip after a certain amount of times of it, hitting the wall, if you like. So I think, Intel will obviously hold out as long as possible to avoid having to recall these, because it's not Intel who's having to recall, it's the Dells, the HPs, the Asuses of this world who will have to do the recall on behalf of Intel, and that's obviously expensive for everybody involved. So they're not going to do it unless there's absolutely stone cold evidence that this is a problem. It does appear that evidence is mounting. And so now, as sort of Roche implied a minute ago, we're into the how long can they hold out stage. And, it's not a good look for Intel, but it's incredibly expensive to do this kind of stuff. So I imagine neither they nor the PC manufacturers want to do it. But I think, it's how far that tipping point, when that tipping point arrives, where they have to eventually bow to the pressure, I guess.
I wouldn't be surprised if what ends up happening is a BIOS or microcode update which fixes or very much reduces the incidence of the problem at the expense of performance. And I think they probably, I haven't read the small print on anything in many years, but I dare say that Intel would be able to legally defend itself if it were to slow down processors that were sold as top of the range in the name of stability. I'm sure there's some kind of cover they could apply for that.
Which sort of brings you back into that Apple battery gate territory, where Apple were alleged to hamper the performance of the battery to increase its longevity, which it sounds almost exactly the same as what you suggest Intel do there, and that's what cost Apple an awful amount of money in court. So,
Roche?
So I want to come back in because Barry mentioned something. So I was thinking of it sort of from an individual end user point of view, and then of course you've got these companies, so they would need to look to their contract. So, and then that should be covered. They'll have, presumably there will be provisions in those contracts which make allowances for some failures. But if the number of failures is material, so that it's like it amounts to a failure of consideration, then there could be recovery from Intel for breach of contract.
Okay.
So now I'm sleeping less easy.
If you're Intel, okay.
If you're Intel, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Okay, let's move on to the second story, which is actually with me, and this is titled. We do give our stories little titles, by the way. So this one is entitled "What exactly is the Galaxy Ring?" And it's a way for us to just very briefly mention Samsung Unpacked. Oh, that's what it's called, wasn't it? Samsung Unpacked, which happened. Samsung Galaxy Unpacked, which happened actually last week. Which, of course, we weren't around last week. Everyone was taking our communal holiday in the steam baths together. And at that event, very predictably, Samsung announced updates to the Galaxy Watch Ultra, the Galaxy Z Fold 6 and the Galaxy Z Flip 6, none of which, I'll be honest, were truly surprising, but it also gave us a first proper look at the Ring. Now, I wasn't there myself to see this, unfortunately, but I did. A couple of my colleagues at Future Publishing have, and so they've done a first look. And there's not much you can really say, if I'm truly honest, about a ring. A ring is a ring is a ring. Just ask Frodo. But the point is that these are they are going up against Aura. Aura, is that how you say it? What do you think, Darian?
Yeah. Or,
So
like your magical soul thing that hangs around you.
yeah, except it's spelled with an O, just to confuse things. But anyway, Aura, whatever they're called, they are the market leader in rings, which, let's face it, is quite a niche territory anyway. And there are quite a few rings available. So I went to one of the tech shows, and there's quite a few Chinese manufacturers that make them because they're relatively simple. Come on, guys. You put sensors onto a ring, you slap in a battery, put in some software, add a bit of Bluetooth. There you go. You got a lovely little health monitoring ring. And
Are we cover mounting one next month or something?
oh God, that'd be amazing, actually. Wouldn't that be great to cover mount a health ring? I should do it. But do you know what? The surprising thing is how expensive these things are. So the big difference here is that Samsung is charging £399 for this tiny item. And whereas Aura, I'm going to say Aura is selling it for £299. But then you have to pay on top of that a monthly subscription fee of around £6 per month, I think it is. So overall, over several months, whatever, the Samsung one will turn out to be cheaper because you don't have to pay that fee. And Aura does produce more advanced kind of monitoring, particularly for women who wish to check their cycles. By which I do not mean their. Anyway, you know what I mean. You know which. Extremely
Just
funny
move
joke.
on, Tim. Just move on.
Why this? Anyway, the point is that you can get much more from an Aura ring than you can from the Samsung Ring in terms of those kind of capabilities. Certainly at the moment. But the process remains the same, so it's awkward. Unless you go into a Samsung store, you will have to have a a set of these fake rings sent to you, so they can tell which size your finger is. Because the whole thing about this thing is it needs to be snug against your finger, because it's monitoring your pulse, it's monitoring your SpO2 levels, it's monitoring all these other things, so yeah, it needs to be snug, and so that's a slightly painful and annoying step you'll have to go through first of all, as with any of these things. So what else do you need to know? The Galaxy Ring has IP68 water resistance, so you can safely drop it into a bath, or even wear it in a bath if you so wish, or take it to a desert of your choice and have sand blown at it. It should survive all these things. So you get fitness tracking, you get sleep monitoring, which is one of the most useful things, and you also, but it's designed. Really, Samsung is hoping that you will buy this and also already have a smartwatch and have a Galaxy phone, because then it kind of builds everything around its own health app, rather than the Aura just seems to me at least to be more open than Samsung, although I'm sure you can download the Samsung Health app on your iPhone. I haven't tried it. And no, are you shaking your head, Barry?
There's two, so there's degrees of information you get with Samsung's Health app. If you're on a Samsung Galaxy device, you get much richer information than if not. I have a Samsung smartwatch, but I moved to a Pixel phone, and now I get less health information because I've left the family.
Oh, really? Do you? Okay, that's interesting. I didn't realise that. So, which is ironic, really, because this same week, excitingly, and this is a segue, by the way, Samsung has announced a song, a new song. Are we aware of this? Have you heard of this, guys?
They've announced a new song.
Yep, they have announced a new song. Okay, so you probably want to know what that song is, don't you?
No.
Come on.
You
Yeah,
do.
go on.
I'm going to tell you anyway. Are you fans of K-pop?
No.
No.
Well,
Surprisingly.
no. Well, there's a band called Tomorrow X Together, TXT, and apparently they are K-pop icons. And they have worked with Samsung to create a new Galaxy brand anthem. And I can tell you a couple of samples of the lyrics if you like. I'm sure you'd like to hear. I'm not going to sing it. I'm sorry to say, but anyway.
What is the point of going through all this and then you're not going to sing it?
But Darian, trust me, there would be class action lawsuits if I sang on this podcast due to the damage done to people's hearing. The single is called Open Always Wins, and it includes the key lyric, Open Always Wins, so don't you keep it inside. And it also has the lyric, We Are the Open Hearts. And I did listen to this, by the way, and you can watch it on YouTube if you so wish. And what I can tell you is that TXT are excited to collaborate on this meaningful project with Samsung. They have infused their single with a sincere message of encouragement. They're rooting for everyone to bravely face challenges without being disheartened by failure. And they also, just finally, we believe those who overcome and progress through obstacles are the true champions. So there you go. That's an uplifting message for you today.
So, you know, that those lyrics, they read like they were created by AI. That's, you know.
They do indeed, and there is an ironicality to this as well, because shut up, Darius, that's a real world. Good, I've just made it up. Because they're talking about this openness, and as Barry has just pointed out, pretty much all their new launches are pointing people to be part of their closed ecosystem. So where is the openness there, guys? Anyway. There we go. That is the main news. Anybody wish to say anything about the Samsung Galaxy Ring?
There's a lot of Samsung products that I'm not going to buy, but this is probably the one I'm not going to buy the most.
But it's £399 for.
That's part of it, yeah. Well, did you say it was not just £399, but then a subscription on top?
No, that's the
that's
Aura.
that's the Aura. Sorry,
that which only costs £299, and other brands of Health Ring are available.
So you have to use it for. I can't do the maths. I should be able to do the maths. 16 months or something to equal the price.
Why don't we call it a €5 a month? Then it's really easy.
Then it's £60. No, what? £60 a year.
Yeah, so it'd be 20 months, wouldn't it? So anyway, yeah, so it would repay for itself if you look at it from that point of view within 2 years. But anyway, Barry, you're looking puzzled.
Well, it wouldn't pay for itself. You're just not paying Aura. But the thing with the ring is it adds no more information than you've already got in your watch. Granted, for things like sleep tracking, it's slightly more comfortable to wear a ring in bed than a watch, and of course you have to charge the watch every night pretty much, so finding time to charge it if you're sleeping with it is difficult. But there is so little in that ring that adds any value to me that the chance of me paying $399 for it are absolutely minimal.
So what I will say,
but sorry, I'm just going to say that the two people have asked me about this in the last week, both women, in fact. So I wonder if this is something that perhaps appeals more to women than men, especially as smartwatch designs are generally more male-focused, I would say, than female-focused.
I can speak on behalf of all
Sorry.
women.
yes, speak on behalf of all women, please.
I'm going to speak on behalf of all women. Oh, this is a crazy idea. No, so here are my concerns, but they're rooted in data privacy, actually. So it's like, okay, so where is all of this information being stored? And let's just have a consideration. Like, let's look into the future, 5 years' time, and you're getting health insurance. So health insurance are contracts that are uber mai fides, which are of the utmost good faith. It is not inconceivable that, in 5 years' time, they will say, do you have a smartwatch or something like that? Or, then there may be an incentive to share that information, but also there's a huge amount of information asymmetry in that. You don't know that, say, poor sleep over a certain time is an indicator of early onset Parkinson's, yada, yada. And I can just see this being abused. So I've just got alarm bells going off. I really wanted to have, I really wanted a watch, bit like, a little bit more feminine than what, it's just exactly like Barry's. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's just the storage, the processing, who could own it potentially, all of those reasons. Let me see how this plays out in the real world. Yeah.
And lawyers are high here, but it was interesting a couple of years ago that Vitality, who are one of those health insurance providers, were offering free Apple Watches to customers who signed up for a prolonged period of time, because as Roche says, these are the companies that absolutely stand to benefit from having this data on you. And Apple's pretty guarded about especially health data. I'm not suggesting that they were feeding that information to Vitality, but it is not a big leap to suggest, especially in this day and age where car insurance companies are pretty much demanding everyone now fits these black box things into their cars. We're not a million miles away from health insurance companies demanding some kind of metrics on you. This is definitely coming down the road. There's no doubt about it.
All right, thank you. Just to close this off, in answer to a couple of questions on Discord, and by the way, you can always join us live for our always perfect and glitch-free live broadcast at pcpro.link/discord. We'll take you straight to our Discord channel, where you'll also meet lots of lovely people. And one such person is, I've got to find that. Why do I give myself these terrible things to do? One such person is Nick Gassman, but I'm not actually necessarily sure that he asked this question. Someone asked, how long does the battery last? And it depends on the size of the ring that you choose. And it's the same for the Aura. So the bigger ones, Samsung has said will last for about a week. The smaller ones are expected to last for 5 days. It does depend upon usage and all other kind of things such as that. All right, let's move on to the next item in the podcast, and that is with you, Barry.
Yeah, this is Google, and they have started to release to the public something called Google Vids, VIDS, which basically allows you to make those god awful video presentations that certainly everyone in our industry has to sit through at least 3 times a day, where you're demonstrating a new product, or maybe the CEO of a company wants to bring everyone up to speed on how brilliantly you're doing over the past year or whatever. So it's those kind of salesy videos where you might throw in, slides and graphs and have those kind of stock image photos dotted around them with a soundtrack over the top. Well, Google wants to get the AI to help you do all this. Now, I have to say, I've not been able to try this yet. My Google Workspace has not been enabled with this yet. I think it's rolling out pretty slowly. So I can only go from what I can see from demos. But it seems to want the AI to do an awful lot of the work for you. So the sort of idea, the one they demoed is where it's kind of a product pitch. You launch a new product. Here's the video deck for it that you might release on YouTube, or if you're pitching to clients and whatever. And so you just throw your press release at it with all the product information, say, go and figure this out. And the AI produces a sort of rough script for the video. I mean, literally a script for the video. You can have an AI voice provide the narration. They give you a choice of voices to pick from, and you can insert your own video. So there was quite a nice feature where you can write a bit of script for yourself, and then it creates a sort of split screen thing where you're looking at your webcam and there's like a teleprompter in front of you, and then if you, like I'm doing here, or during the podcast or the video delivery, it automatically cuts those out and condenses it all and makes it nice. So there are some elements of this that look reasonably promising, but this whole idea of, as Roche said with the song lyrics a minute ago, of AI writing banal copy for your sales pitches that I'm now going to have to sit through even more of these videos for the rest of my life, absolutely depresses me. But hey, this is the world we live in.
Can I ask, are you okay?
No, not really.
Do you want a hug or something? We can't really do that here. You don't want a hug. Is that the worst thing in the universe?
I'm quite warm. That's the problem. In this office, it's bloody boiling. I've had to shut the door.
Just before we go to properly discuss this, I just need to know if there's anything in the past 12 months in terms of news releases, etc., that's actually made you happy.
Yeah, I quite like most of the AI stuff, as I think I've said, but this one leaves me pretty cold. I got a good hardware coming up.
Yes, you do. Okay, that's true. That's a good trail as well. Thank you very much, Barry. Excellent. Okay, Roche, your reaction to a life of Google Vids.
Yeah, so I'm going to leapfrog off Barry's point. Like, the last thing we need is more junk, but actually it's worse than that, because they're spinning up server over server like all the time to keep up with more and more of this junk, and of course then Twitter goes wild and there's all of this, and like simultaneously in the same breath we're like, oh, don't drive petrol cars because of the CO2, and it's like, a car can get me to Tesco where I can buy food. This stuff, I just don't see the utility of having lots and lots of kind of uncreative people utilizing a tool, to push out, in the words of the poet on the team, more banal junk, So
Sorry, is Barry the poet?
First time that's literally ever been said about me.
Darian, your thoughts?
Well, I'm actually quite optimistic about this, because I think, there's an awful lot of marketing content and content in general out there which suffers from some very simple, straightforward sins. I mean, we've all sat through presentations where the person putting it together didn't really have a sense of what was relevant, didn't really have a sense of the structure, didn't lead with the important stuff, missed things out, was ambiguous about stuff. And if putting an AI to work on the the bare facts of what it is you want to present, if that can shuffle it and pull out the important bits and put it into a decently structured, more communicative, more digestible format, then I think we'll all be better off. I mean, it doesn't seem that much different to me to already, if you go online and say, I want to put together a proposal, a business letter, a CV, whatever, there's millions of templates out there that you can copy. This is not very different, except hopefully it will be much more sophisticated and will produce more engaging, certainly visually engaging output.
Roche, your face has been incredibly expressive whilst Darian said all that, so I'm just interested to know what you're thinking.
I was going for poker face. So.
Were you? Never play poker, Roche. Just my top tip.
But sorry, go ahead.
It's just so Darian is really optimistic, because I think what he's seeing is it's like, you hand someone a chisel and they're like Michelangelo. I think this is like giving every fool in the world like a chisel. It's the same with like opinions on Twitter. Like we're just creating more and more, and it's not consequence free, I suppose, is my point. It's we're heating up the world at a time when the world's heating up, and recommending that we don't do things which are useful and doing more and more that seems to me to be a bit useless.
I think exactly the opposite, to be honest. I mean, I think the trouble is that we have given every idiot in the world a chisel in the form of PowerPoint, in the form of desktop software that lets anybody put together presentations, videos, business communications, and so on. And this is much more like giving everybody access to a skilled professional. Obviously, in the first generation, certainly, possibly forever, an AI will not be as tasteful and smart and intelligent and so forth as an actual skilled professional. But I see this as taking the chisels away from the people who shouldn't have them, and giving it over to something which is better trained to realize what that person should be producing, rather than just what they can do with the skills they picked up on the 2-day Microsoft PowerPoint course.
But in some ways, these things aren't new. I mean, if you go on to TikTok or Instagram, whatever, you see a million of these AI-generated, templated videos that all look faintly identical, just with different pictures being thrown in or video clips. So it's just going to create more mush. Even though I take your point that it might help absolute beginners create videos that look passable rather than anything. The car crash PowerPoint presentations, it still just creates more bland mush that we don't need. And just before you finally, just to pick up on Roche's point, Google last week, I think, announced that they were not going to be carbon neutral anymore as a direct result of AI. And now, whether they were carbon neutral in the first place because they were just buying off a load of credits, which is always very dubious. But the fact that they've publicly given up on it because AI is burning through so much electricity, even Google couldn't justify throwing a few more 100 million quid at carbon capture credits is alarming, I'd say.
Darian, did you want to come in?
Well, just to say that I think TikTok is the wrong model here. I understand what you're saying. We've all seen some, terrible, bland, totally uninspired AI-generated mush, I think was the word you used, and that's quite right. But on TikTok, people are posting it because I don't want to generalize, but they're nobodies with nothing to say who want attention. In the context, the specific context of business communications or of marketing, hopefully there will be a clear message to be got across, and that is where AI templating and AI streamlining and all that stuff can actually help. When there is something fundamentally there that can be polished, then, well, as I say, I remain optimistic.
Okay, let's close on that and move on to Roche, please, talking about antitrust again.
Okay, so I didn't name these, but I'm going to name my stories now. So this is Google Bash 2.
Google what 2?
Bash, because we've Barry bashed them, and now I'm going to have a little.
Hey, don't blame me.
Okay, go for it.
Yeah, so this is the headline. Google offered cloud firms 470 million euros to fight Microsoft. And so, okay, when I read this, I'm thinking for a company that started out with high hopes, a great product, and a kind of a really low bar corporate values motto, which was don't be evil, they have like failed to reach that really low bar with what they've done here. So,
So
Google,
PC Pro's official stand now is that Google is evil. Just to clarify, is that what you're saying?
can I come back to that at the
Yeah,
end?
sure.
Okay, all right.
I've got the lawyers on line one.
Okay, so Google, which is, I think, in my personal opinion, is kind of becoming a byword for hubris and, outdated technology. Because anyway, slides, the docs and whatnot. Anyway, they offered a group of EU-based cloud firms a package worth 470 million euros in a failed attempt to derail an antitrust settlement with Microsoft. Now, there's loads of things. So the group, collectively known as Cloud Infrastructure Service Providers in Europe, showing that they know the value of optimizing for search engines, rejected the offer. Now you might think, oh gosh, they have a higher moral code than what Google do, but then you learn that the package was made up of licenses over 5 years and 15 million in cash. So you're like, I've just abandoned Google for Microsoft Teams just because of the features, the AI features actually, and Copilot and all of the kind of nice whizzy things that I've just said are a bit rubbish. But anyway, so so why is this story important? Well, it's important for lots of reasons that I don't think are related either to anti-competitive laws or cloud infrastructure. So underneath the headline, Google offered cloud firms 470 million to fight Microsoft. I'll be repeating that throughout. It reads, Cloud Group rejected Google package to keep their EU case. So this is extremely strong wording. And I can see as Tim looks over his glasses, he's becoming really concerned about liability issues. Rest assured, there are none. Because Google, well-established, well-respected, sophisticated news outlet, would have had not just the internal lawyers, but like a whole army of internal lawyers and external lawyers. But like they'll bring in the big guns. They'll bring in like Baker McKenzie. They will have kicked this around like a pig bladder at a final. They would all have been. It's a reference to football.
Yeah, no, I'm aware. But I think it's been a while, but yes.
All right, well, it was the faces. Okay. So anyway, they wouldn't have had a single lawyer. They would have had lots of lawyers in. So I read one article and it said a person familiar with the matter told a reporter that Google did not necessarily make the counteroffer contingent on dropping the EU complaint, but had long been exploring joining CISPE and would only do so if it upheld its mission to defend fair licensing. But that actually flies in the face of the headline, right? So within the article, they have quoted this, but that's not what the headline says. And it's interesting. This is interesting for two reasons. There's no name associated with that quote, and nor is there any mention of any organization. And I mean, that's really smooth because you can't say that because you would get into trouble. You would properly get into trouble for that. So a person who's more familiar with the matter, Ben Maynard, who's a spokesman for the cloud, said he's on record as saying, that members were presented with alternative options to accepting the Microsoft deal while not disclosing the terms of the other options. So what does all this mean? So it will enable European cloud providers to offer Microsoft applications and services on their local cloud infrastructures, meeting the demand for sovereign cloud solutions, which is really important for Europe. The settlement is being criticized because why is it being criticized? Oh yeah, they said it's tantamount to a payout, and you're like, well, that is like what settlement means, right? Mm-hmm. You agree not to fight so that you can both be adults. Don't let perfection be the enemy of good. get to something that's a compromise, but that works for all parties. So now the Google head of platform, this is interesting, criticized it, and he said he's on record as saying it was tantamount to a payoff. And then he went further. He said Microsoft's playbook of paying off complainants rather than addressing the substance of their complaint hurts businesses and shouldn't fool anyone. Ugh. Now, I think this is interesting because this guy Xavier didn't actually mention any substance. And I wasn't expecting to read like turgid, dense legal prose, right? Like, oh, but I would expect to see like, well, what's the legal basis for your complaint? How does that apply to this company? And then your conclusion, right? And so none of that is presented. So yeah, so I think Google's looking like a sore loser. They've been caught with their pants down. There's obviously really good evidence, or other words which are more legally. Bloomberg obviously have really good evidence that this was the deal. Take this deal of our licenses over a couple of years plus 15 million in cash, continue the fight. And so, yeah, so that's my Google bash story too.
Yeah, and actually, we should just say, Bloomberg, I have to say, in general, I do very much respect their reporting. They are a very well-resourced company. So, Barry, you look like you got something to say.
No, not really. I think Josh covered it pretty comprehensively.
Okay, all right. Darian, unless you've got anything to add?
No.
Let us scoot along. Oh, you've got a bonus nib. I did almost let you get away without your bonus nib, Roche, before we move into Nisha.
Okay, well, I've called this one Liar, Liar, Pants on Fire.
Okay.
So
Go on.
this tune looks like it's going to pass out for anyone just listening to the podcast. Oh, this is a great story. So Fake Toshi is back in the news again. And it's super helpful that we start to refer to him as Fake Toshi because his long name is disgraced Aussie computer scientist, Dr. Craig Stephen Wright. Stephen with a V.
I think you missed out disgraced litigious computer scientist.
Yeah.
Who has badgered and harassed Bitcoin developers in the United States, the UK, and Norway by making wildly unsupportable, dishonest claims extensively and repeatedly that he was Satoshi Nakamoto, the cryptocurrency's inventor, when he was not.
And why is he back?
What?
Why is he back?
So good question. So yesterday he published, or it was published on CraigWright.net, a short summary of the approved judgment. So one article on this reads, this is important, on the 16th of July 2024, Wright issued a legal disclaimer on his website emphatically stating that he is not Satoshi Nakamoto. It goes on to say, Wright has been ordered by a UK court to publicly admit he is not Satoshi. Now, the judgment runs to 231 pages, and I didn't have the opportunity to read through the entire thing before we hopped on today's podcast. I know this is a nib. Let me just check the time. Oh my gosh. Okay. I'll be really quick. So I wasn't able to find the reference to the requirement that he make that statement. However, I will say this. He did not make that statement. And if it is a requirement, he has fallen short. Right. So all he has done is copy part of the approved judgment. And that is not the same as admitting that you're not Satoshi Nakamoto, which is what the claim is from the article.
Okay. All right, so watch this space to see if he actually does, but it sounds like he's trying to avoid it.
Can I tell you what? I'm going to read through the 231 pages. I'm going to find that reference, and I'm going to come back to you.
Okay. Oh, there's a really useful feature now called Search that allows you just to look for a keyword. So I thoroughly recommend that rather than going through all 230 pages. Okay, nibs proper, starting with you, Darian.
Yes, so you may know since Android 10, there's been a secret, only available by unlocking developer flags desktop mode in Android. And it's been spotted that Google has been quietly improving this in the latest betas of Android 15. It now has a fully functional windowed mode, which you can use to run multiple Android apps at once on an external monitor, if you enable it in the developer flags. This has raised some speculation that maybe the next range of Google Pixel phones, which are coming in August, they might be running a surprise desktop operating system if Google chooses to unlock this as the launch surprise. But I don't think they tend to do big launch surprises, so who knows?
Okay, thank you. Next item.
Apple has approved for the first time, I believe, a general purpose platform emulator for iOS. If you have an iPhone or an iPad, you can now run UTMSE, snappy name, which allows you to run a complete emulation of an x86 computer and install Windows. There's guidance on how to run Windows XP all the way up to Windows 11 or various Linux distributions. So finally, in 2024, I think 14 years after the first iPad, perhaps answering my question, what's it useful for?
Yeah, because they barely sold any since then. And talking of Apple products, Barry.
Yes, we are living in the future, my friends, because NatWest today is launching its first Apple Vision Pro banking app, where customers will be able to access day-to-day banking needs through spatial technology and will be able to lean into the future of banking. Unfortunately, I don't have a £3,500 pair of goggles lying around, but John Honeywell does and promises to log in to find out what it's like. So stay tuned next week for the future of banking, people.
I think the only thing scarier than looking at my bank balance is the idea of looking at my bank balance in virtual reality.
Yes. Okay, and what else have you been looking at this week, Barry?
The stars, Tim, the stars, because this is this right here. In fact, if you're looking on video, is the Unistellar Odyssey Pro, which is what they call a smart telescope. Now, due to the glorious British summer, I've had this thing for 2 weeks and I've been able to use it only on 2 nights because it's the only 2 nights where there have been no clouds in the sky obscuring absolutely everything. But how this basically works is it has a wonderful smartphone app that you can use on iOS, Android, iPads if you like, Darian. And you basically, the setup is minimal. You pair the app with the telescope. It points up to the sky, it looks at the stars and works out where it is, and then in the app you pick from a menu of galaxies, stars, cosmos, constellations, and say point at that, and the thing whirs around for about a minute or two, works out where it is, autofocuses perfectly and takes a photo. And on this more advanced model, this one is called the Odyssey Pro because unlike the everyday model, and I'm not going to move it around because it's too bloody heavy, it's got an eyepiece on it. So it's basically an electronic viewfinder in the telescope itself. So it's not optical, bear in mind, but you can look in and see what's going on, but the same image is mirrored onto your mobile phone. So either way, you can see what's happening. Now, there are 2 big problems normally with telescopes, as far as I understand it, and I am by no means an expert on telescopes, but as I understand, most of the smart telescopes out there, or general telescopes, need their mirrors adjusting or correcting due to fluctuations in temperature and stuff. This does this all automatically, so all of the images remain reasonably sharp, and I'll share a couple of them in a minute with our friends on Discord. So you don't have to do anything here. There's no sort of day-to-day maintenance. You don't have to fiddle around twiddling mirrors to make it all sharp. The only thing you might have to do is adjust the little dial on the optical viewfinder to make sure that's sharp, but that's the only bit of setup I've had to do. And the other is finding stuff in the sky, because it's pretty difficult, even with a telescope like this, if you're just doing it manually, to try and ferry around and find something interesting. Whereas this, you literally, the app will say, this is what you can see from your position on Earth. Hit this to see what you want to look like.
So what is the order of magnification?
That's an excellent question, Tim. I've got the things up here. Where are we? It's got a focal length of 320 millimeters, magnitude limit of 17.2. So I'm guessing. I don't know. It's a simple answer.
No, I mean, maybe it doesn't really apply in the same way as it does to binoculars, etc., and to phones. I don't really know. As I'm also not an expert in this field. Barry, so you must have pointed it at planets. What planets could you see?
So I've not managed to find any planets yet, unfortunately. I've only had, and like I say, I've only been able to do it for
Point
2
it downwards.
nights. And it depends where you are. The other problem with this, of course, problem you say, is that it just sweeps around automatically, but it doesn't know what obstructions are in the way. So it might think you can see something from where you are on Earth, but of course, if the neighbour's got a conifer or there's a great whacking extension next door, it can only swing around and then go, I can't see it. That, by the way, and we've talked a lot about the law and police in this episode, but I may well need Roche's legal expertise, because a couple of times it's automatically swung around and pointed into my neighbour's bedrooms, and I've been begging them not to look out of their bedroom doors at 10:30 at night with me with a flipping telescope pointed straight at them. I'm trying to move it back round. So anyway, officer, it's completely innocent. I'm just looking for Uranus, Constable. But it's
Okay.
you can see various constellations, galaxies, nebulas. I will put the one I saw last night into Discord now, so you can have a rough view of what I've been able to pick off. Now, the key thing here is that you need long exposures to get the best images. So that's what this one I've got here of the M57 Ring Nebula is a nice shot, but it took 8 minutes to expose. They recommend that you actually expose for 30 minutes, an hour to get the full glow of the nebulas and constellations and galaxies. So that is really probably not anywhere near as good as it could be, but I was freezing last night. I was going to stand out there for an hour with a bloody telescope with the neighbours' curtains twitching. So I will have to do that at some point. I might try and drag it up to Devil's Dyke in Brighton to try and get a clearer view. But that said, it's very good at avoiding the light pollution, because I'm not in the biggest built-up town, but I am in a reasonably big town with lots of surrounding light. It does a very good job of minimizing light pollution and creating clear images. I'm going to put another image in of the moon that was shared in the Unistellar Facebook community. I've not been able to point at the moon yet because it's not been in position the 2 nights I've been here. Can you see that? Where are we? I don't know if that's gone in or not. But okay. So obviously there's an online community that Unistellar generates. There's Facebook groups, and they have places where you can upload images to share. So that picture of the moon is obviously pretty nice and detailed. So it shows you the kind of stuff you can get. But the ones I've seen of planets other than the moon, which is obviously a lot closer than most stuff. See, I said I wasn't an expert at this stuff. Is the planets tend to be pretty small in the view, because obviously they're some distance away.
Thank you. Astronomer Royal Barry
Patrick
Collins.
Moore, they call me.
Some distance away.
Barry, do you have trouble with Starlink or not?
No, not that I've seen. I mean, it's hard to tell. You do occasionally see light patterns moving across. I'm not sure entirely whether that's just where the telescope is moving very slightly to adjust, and that's just a star trail you're effectively seeing, whether that's a shooting star, whether that's Starlink. I'm not 100% sure. Like I say, I'm still at a pretty early stage with this thing, but you do see movements across. I'm not quite sure what they are.
Okay, a couple of quick fire questions from the floor. Price.
Yeah, here we go. So the Pro model that is right here in front of me, that is $3,999, or I think that translates to 3,500 over here. I'm just going to get the drop down on the menu. So yeah, about $3,500. Or there's the model without the viewfinder, which is significantly cheaper. I think that comes in at just about £2,000. And actually, I thought when I first got this, you would definitely want the viewfinder. I don't think it's actually essential, because it's an electronic viewfinder. It is nice to look in and see things. It does look good in the viewfinder, but I wouldn't say it's essential. So if you were interested, the simple Odyssey model with a pretty much the same spec, it's got a bit less storage. That is £1,999. The Pro here, that's £3,499.
Okay, and you mentioned about carrying up to the moors with you.
Yeah.
So how heavy is it?
It is pretty heavy with the tripod. I don't know if you can.
Barry's showing off for people who can't watch us
Yeah.
on the video with one arm
I've been
lifting
down
up.
the gym. But it's definitely portable, and it comes in quite a nice sort of carry case. So obviously the tripod folds down. You can do what's called parking the telescope, so it goes effectively flat and pops back into the box. So you definitely wouldn't have any problem putting it in. And, I've got a tiny little Toyota Aygo. You could pack it easily into the boot of that and hike it up to Devil's Dyke or whatever. That's not a
I
problem.
think it probably costs more than the iGo.
It definitely does, yeah.
And how much battery life do you get?
5 hours. So if you are doing those long exposures, yeah, you need to just make sure your batteries are topped up. But it's got USB-C here on the side, so you just run a charger into it. And if you've got one of those portable battery packs, you can obviously bung one of those in as well. I've just broken the seal. Look.
Nice. Okay. All right. Any questions from the floor? Darian or Roche?
No,
Nothing?
I mean, it's a telescope. I feel like, as I often say, I'm impressed you found so much to say about it.
It's not a CD-ROM drive. That's a proper item. That one.
There's loads to say about CD-ROM drives. Is it IDE or SATA? Does it have like a proper eject tray or a slot? What speed does it write at? That's a CD-RW drive, obviously. But
Okay. Well, actually, how long does it take? So I take it, Barry, that the images just appear instantly on the thing, so there's no lag.
In the app,
On
you
your-
mean?
Yeah, in the app.
Yeah, so you basically, when you're doing an observation, you have almost live video view of it, and then you set the exposure going for however long you want, and at times doing that you can press like the camera button and take a still of how it is at the time. The device itself has storage. I think there's 64 gigabytes of storage inside this one. Yes, there is. So it's capturing all the images itself, and it captures the raw data as well. So what you're getting in the app is like a processed version of the images, but you can take the raw images out, process them yourself if you've got the skills to do that. And you can probably, it's effectively image stacking, what we call image stacking in photography, where you're just taking repeated exposures to get a range of contrast and color, and that's effectively what that's doing, and creates the final image automatically.
Okay, Roche, any questions from you?
No, I don't. No questions. Comment though.
Okay, yeah, comments.
Okay, so I've been mind-numbingly bored standing around, in an evening, waiting my turn to get to the telescope. So I really like the idea that everybody can see it, because and then for anyone with any kids or anything, it's just kind of. Yeah. Also, getting your eye in is actually quite difficult. When you have your eye to the thing. That's especially when you're starting out. So yeah, I like that idea. I wouldn't spend. Oh, hold on. Never mind. I'll wait till I'm asked.
Barry, I think you're going to make a comment there.
No, I completely agree. It's a real benefit to be able to just especially on an iPad, something the iPad size, you can easily share it around. And it's one of the few things that I get to review that my kids are instantly, oh, what's that? It's one of those objects that definitely creates interest.
Yeah, they didn't like that CD-ROM drive, did they?
Not big fans of it, no.
They weren't keen at all. All right, I think it might be time to do a poll, Barry. So if you can do that, whilst we go for votes from, let's start with you. Let's start with you, Roche. You're keen.
Okay, well, if I was in the market for one, if you get the $2,000 version, you get it goes to the iPad. It goes to the iPad, right? Barry?
Yes,
Barry?
yeah, both do the same, yeah.
Yeah. So then, okay, I'll give it a hot.
You give it a hot. Okay, Barry, there is a very important question that is repeated. People want to know, does it run Doom?
It does not run Doom, no.
It does not run Doom. Cole, it does not run Doom. Sorry. Darian, Hot or not?
Yeah, I'm fascinated by telescopes. I do love the idea of being able to see, celestial bodies millions of miles away and make out, details of nebulae and things that we could never, never possibly in our lifetimes experience up close, but we can somehow, still observe them from, across the galaxies. It's amazing, and it does seem like this addresses a lot of the very real practical problems of doing that. Like if you were to buy just a little spyglass and try and see what was up there, then yeah, you wouldn't really be able to see anything. You wouldn't know what you were looking at. You'd have difficulties if you did try to take a long exposure. You'd have difficulty staying focused, not focused, but staying sighted because of the rotation of the Earth. All of these things, some bright spark has seemingly addressed almost everything that makes astrophotography and astronomy difficult. But I kind of feel like once you make all that stuff automatic, what are you doing exactly? I mean, what is the purpose of it? Is it? I mean, I guess Barry finds it rewarding. I'm not going to don't mean to diminish at all the joy that it may bring an enthusiast. But I would feel, and this is me. I would feel like I was cheating a little bit if I just set it up in the garden, pointed it up at the heavens, and kind of pressed a button, and it said, "Well, you're looking at Jupiter." I'm like, "Great, okay, get me a photo of Jupiter. I'll be back in an hour to see what you've done." So I don't know if it were cheap. If it's easy to use, I didn't get Barry saying it was easy as such. I got him saying that everything is available, but it still sounds like there's an element of kind of maybe quite satisfying and rewarding learning and achieving. If it were really easy to use and it was super cheap, then I'd be like, yes, fantastic. I would. I want one. But I think $3,000 is. Because all you're going to get out of it ever is a photograph of something that the James Webb Space Telescope has a vastly, vastly better picture of already. So, it's like running Dak on Discord is saying maybe Darian just wants a Google search. There is an element of that. So, I don't know. I mean, all astronomy is cool, and so I suppose it's hot, but I'm afraid I'm going to save my $3,000 and buy something much more down to earth.
As such, I will say, Darren, I think you just took longer to answer that quick question, was it hot or not, than Darren and Barry took explaining the whole microwave telescope. Barry, is it hot or is it not?
I want to use it a bit more but I can't, I guess, because I'm on the spot here. From what I can see so far, yes, it's hot. I too would struggle to pay $3,500 for it, if I'm being honest, but as a piece of technology that does pretty amazing things, it is dead simple to use. All you do is just turn it on, pair it, tell it what you want to look at. It could barely be easier to use. And I think it's really good for that, the way you can just pick out stuff in the sky that you just can't see, obviously, with the naked eye, but you just don't even know is there. And it's able to break through the light pollution and stuff like that. You're able to share it with other people. Yes, I really like it. Yes, it's hot.
Okay, I'm going to go. Not to just be contrary, really. I think.
Tim, you're not just looking at stuff that's far away. You're looking at stuff that's far away. This isn't just looking into space. It's looking back in time. You could see, or at least Barry could with his funky new telescope, something that happened hundreds of thousands. Tonight, he could see something that happened hundreds of thousands of years ago. If that doesn't excite you, what does?
Okay, so so going back to one of the points that was made earlier, I do like telescopes and the whole concept that you're talking about, Rosha, looking back into the past. I'm with you there, but there is just something. I don't know. Antiseptic. I don't know. There's something. It's just a bit too cold. I know they don't start doing any jokes. I understand the space is cold, but it's just there's a division there between. I want to see exactly what I can see. I want to be looking through a piece of glass myself, be able to actually appreciate it. And I want to be able to swivel. I don't want us to tell it to go to 51 degrees north, 23 degrees. centigrade, whatever it is that I need to tell it to do. I just want to go, okay, you know what? I want to look up there. I don't want to look into my neighbour's bedrooms, unlike Barry. I want to just direct it exactly where I want to direct it. So yeah. Anyway, and especially at this price, I'm sorry, it does leave me cold. So let me be more precise. If I had £2,000, I think I would go and spend it on a proper telescope than I would on this. So that is why I'm cold.
It is a proper telescope, and it is a functioning telescope.
No, I'm with you. Know what I mean, Barry? Yeah, Nick Gassman is absolutely right. I'd rather have a nice racy hard drive. I wouldn't, in case anyone's buying for my Christmas gift early. All right, so let's just look at the
forward planning. July.
Well, you know what PC Pro readers are like, and listeners, they like to stay ahead. So roughly speaking, it's two hot votes to every one cold vote, not vote. So Barry, you have a winner both in the studio and outside. Congratulations. I hope you're happy.
Thank you.
You don't sound happy.
No, Malden says I could get her a keyboard for that money, and it's a good point.
That is a good point, isn't it? Okay. All right. I will just quickly end by saying that the new issue of PC Pro is out, and you can actually talk. Barry's talking about how excited he is about the potential for Photoshop AI and Midjourney AI and that kind of stuff. And you can actually get his really excellent feature you can buy that right now. So if you're a subscriber, hopefully you've already got that. There's also your choice of lovely laptops from £500 and advice on how to run Windows 10 forever in a virtual machine. So nice and techie for you there. Oh, and plus, I should say, I think this is you, Darian. Run your own Dropbox for free. Was that yours?
Oh, your own private cloud. Yes.
Yes. Run your own private cloud for free doesn't work quite so well on the cover. So,
Okay.
you know how it is. Anyway, so there you go. That's all in the new issue of PC Pro that is on the newsstand. If you're a subscriber, you already got it, so go and read it. Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Until our next podcast in a week's time. Goodbye.
Bye.
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 Right, when I hit this button, our dear friends on Riverside, on Discord, on YouTube will stop hearing and seeing us. So,
okay, let's be polite for another. Let's all wave patronisingly goodbye. That's a good idea.